So if you don't know how banner review video work, basically I'm gonna be going through the 4 event banner that will be available in the 1.0 Wedding Wave patch. That is the Jiyan character banner, Jiyan weapon banner, Yinlin character banner, and the Yinlin weapon banner. And I'm gonna be going over my evaluation on are these banner worth pulling for, right? Starting with the first banner that is going to be available for the game, which is going to be the Jiyan character banner. Jiyan is... I think most people overrate Jiyan. Jiyan is not a top tier DPS. He's good, but he's not top tier. There's a difference. His main strength is that he's very good in AoE. The problem is endgame is more focused on boss fight. You got Hologram D6, which is a pure boss fight on dodging. You got Tower, which are level 100 bosses. So unfortunately, Jiyan just doesn't do that well into boss fight, but he's still a really overall really solid character. If you're not really invested into endgame, then this character is actually pretty good, just because he's actually really good for your any other day-to-day activity from event or farming, because he's good in AoE, and those are where AoE are really valued, right? So for casual player, it's fine, just throw him if you like him. Especially, I know the fact that like every single one of my female friends come and tell me, can you please sell me Jiyan? He's so hot. And I'm like, chat, look at this, okay? Look at this. Straight up, he's hot. He asked me by the throat, like, what is going on? Like, anyway, it's a fine character to roll for if you like him and you think he's hot, but I wouldn't roll him because he's meta, because I don't think he's top tier meta at all. The thing about this banner though is that the 4 stars are really good. I think Mortify has one of the biggest hidden potential in the future because he's very, very easy and very quick to rotate. The biggest problem with Mortify right now is that he looked like a Jiyan buffer because he buffed heavy attack on outro and it's only released for Jiyan. I think Mortify could be a very, very good universal buffer in the future. Or not like universal, but like a very, very decent buffer in the future for any other character in the game. And obviously, when you pull this banner, if you hit Jiyan and you hopefully hit Mortify, you put Jiyan, Mortify, and then either Yang or Verena into your team, and that's like your team of 3. So this banner overall is actually like really good. Even though Jiyan is not that good as a rank-up character, this banner is really good just because this 2 characters make a team already, and you need 3 team in this game. And it's gonna be really hard to compile a 3 team from the very beginning. So hitting these 2 characters that make a team already, it's gonna be really, really beneficial for your early game. And then we got Chisha. Chisha is not really that great. She's a fine character if you like heavily invest into her, you learn how to play her, but she needs dupes. Chisha, you need like full dupes, and even then she's like okay at best. Getting Chisha dupes, if you want to play Chisha, is really important. If you don't, just don't play this character. Like, I really want to play Chisha because I love gun characters, but until you have max dupe on Chisha, and unless you're really good and unless you're like super invested, don't play these characters, like, unfortunately, right? And then we got Danji, who is the best character in the game right now, assuming you can properly play her. So hitting a copy of Danji is really good. In fact, if I were to choose, I would probably do like 10 to 20 pull on this character banner just to look for 1 copy of Danjin and hopefully 1 copy of Mortify. I would prioritize Danjin first and then Mortify, but ideally you find Danjin and Mortify and you just stop rolling the banner after you find Danjin and Mortify. That's what I would do. Okay, so let's talk about the weapon banner, starting with Verdant Summit. Obviously, this is Jiyan's weapon. The trap here is that I would not roll for this weapon unless you're pay to win and you want the Jiyan to be really, really, really strong, or you just want a really, 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 really big stat stick for Kalcharo. And even then, I think it's not that good. I would really not roll for the weapon banner unless you are really prepared to spend a bunch of money. At that point, you probably don't care about this video. One of the first mistakes that a lot of people make is probably they look at weapon and they're like, oh, this weapon has crit, it's really good. That's like the common mistake people make from previous gacha game, and crit is really good in this game, but it doesn't mean other stats are bad. So the only reason you'll get this weapon is because you just have a lot of money and you're like, oh, I don't really care about spending money, I just want to be strong right now, and that's good. But otherwise, this weapon, in my opinion, is not that good. Obviously, crit stat is like really, really desirable, but it's fine to miss out on the beginning of the game. But the thing is, this effect is just okay. The problem with this effect is that damage increase in this game is not actually that valuable. So it increases your damage by 12%, but it's additive with all your other damage, which is your arrow damage, for example, your heavy attack damage. You want to diversify your stats. That's why crit is good. And crit is the hardest to get by in this game, followed by attack. And damage percent is the most oversaturated stat in this entire game. And so this 12% damage percent is more like a 3% damage increase at best. The reason is because there's just too many damage percent. So you have your arrow damage percent. For example, let's say you're playing Jiyan, right? You have your 2 free cost echo, which give you 60% arrow. Then you have your 5p set, which give you 40% arrow. And then you have all the heavy percent line on your stats. And then you got a mortify, which give you another like 30% heavy attack. My point is, percent damage in this game is so oversaturated that this actually doesn't give you damage. So don't make the mistake of looking at this and be like, oh, this effect is really good, really universal. Yes, it is universal and it's, you know, it's still damage, but it doesn't give that big of a gain as you think. And the problem with this is the second effect is too hard to proc. Casting an intro and ults at the same time, it's like not gonna be really reliable. Plus the fact that this only increase heavy attack means that this is only for Jiyan. If you're playing like Kocharo, this is not gonna be very good. Or in fact, like characters in the future probably will have a very difficult time taking advantage of this effect. So because of this reason, this weapon is not really good. So if you're free to play, I'll skip this out. The forts on this banner also pretty poop. Dauntless Evernight giving you defense percent, poop. Hollow Mirage giving you like a defense passive, poop. The actual good thing, which is like an energy recharge weapon that give you concerted energy. This is pretty nice, but it's fine to miss out. So I would not roll on the weapon banner at all if you're free to play. And in fact, unless you're like super hard committed onto getting the weapon for a Jiyan, I wouldn't roll the weapon banner. It's what it is. And then we got Yinlin. So this is an unfortunate part because Yinlin as a 5-star character is so much better than Jiyan, but her banner is so much worse than Jiyan. Yinlin is one of the top tier Electro support in the future, and I fully predict that Yinlin will be meta for Electro team for probably a year, just because she has off-field damage. She has really good Electro buff on her outro, and she's really easy to use. I think it's very reasonable to roll Yinlin, especially if you hit Kocharo on your beginner pool. If you hit Kocharo on your beginner pool, 100% save all your pool and go for Yinlin. Yinlin Kocharo is probably the best team right now the game has to offer. And again, I feel unresponsible saying the best because there's only like 2 teams in this game, so it's either this is the best or that is the best. So Yinlin being the best team in the game actually doesn't mean a lot, by the way, because as soon as new character come, there might be like new best team very easily. But for now, Yinlin Kocharo is probably the best Electro team until they power creep with newer Electro characters. But yeah, would highly recommend to roll Yinlin if you have Kocharo. And if you don't have Kocharo, then it's like okay to skip just because there isn't really any other Electro DPS in the game. The main thing with this banner is that the 4 cost kind of sucks. Taochi, in my opinion, is probably one of the worst characters in the game. Yanwu, it's okay at late game when you like fully invest into it, but it's not irreplaceable. You can replace it with like any other support in the game. Jiyan, Marina, and they all can fit the slot. So you don't need Yanwu. Yanwu is just nice because it's orthogonal with other characters in the game. What does that mean is that Yanwu slot perfectly into an Electro team while he doesn't slot into other team. So there's no conflict of interest. If you have Yanwu, you put him with Yinlin, Kocharo. If you don't, then whatever, right? Not really the most important to get. And then we have Alto, who is in a weird spot because I personally believe Alto is a good character and has potential in the future just because of the way he works. But I'll be really honest, I'm sorry to doubt myself on that one. I think Alto is kind of mid. He's a pretty meh DPS and he's a pretty meh support until one day they make a arrow character that have faster rotation time. The problem with Alto is that he rotate decently quick but pretty hard. And I've been like thinking about like would I really put him in a Jiyan team, and the answer is probably like not really. So if the PD carry over, the ideal strategy would be you roll for this banner 4-star. Hopefully you get Danji and Mortify, and then you roll for Yinlin as a 5-star if the PD carry over. And we don't know. It's rumored that the PD carry over, and that'll be the best idea. But unless I have confirmation, I don't want to say that, right? Okay, Yinlin's weapon, it's another like just stats thing. It gives 36% crit rate, which is really nice, but it's not doom if you miss it out. And again, the problem with Yinlin weapon is the exact same as Jiyan, is that the effect is only really good for Yinlin. Obviously, this effect is a little more universal because it's buff attack, and attack is actually a really good stat. The main problem with this is mostly the trigger condition on it relying on your ults and outro to get 2 stacks. And the only character right now that use ults immediately followed by outro is Yinlin. This weapon is a lot more universal than Jiyan. So if you really like Yinlin and you happen to go for her weapon, then I think it's like a pretty fair thing to do. But otherwise, again, I wouldn't go for the weapon unless you just really want to put it on Yinlin. The force on this weapon banner are actually a lot better than the other one. You got Jinsu Keeper, who is nice to have for like Verena. You got the pistol gun, which is probably really good for future gun support, just because you have energy recharge stat on its substat as well as the effect. And then you also got Lunar Cutter, which is looking like a pretty decent sword with attack substat and then a pretty fair effect that also increases your attack pretty straightforwardly. So yeah, that's pretty much my take on the 4 starting limited banner when it comes down to the launch of Wedding Wave. And I know this video is probably pretty complicated to understand for a first-time player. So if you're a first-time player, honestly, I apologize for not being able to explain like a lot of these, because this is like information for experienced player. So if I were a first-time player, I would honestly just not watch this video even though it's too late, and then just subscribe to the channel and then come back to watch this video when you have more experience of the game, because this video is honestly more meant for gacha veteran on like understanding like how gacha work as well as how character value work and stuff, right? So if you're a first-time player, apologize, but you can always come back. And yeah, that's my take on the current banner. Happy Wedding Wave, I guess. Poggers. Okay, thanks for watching. Bye.